Hey there, this is Chris Barron, and this is our second chat, our second voice chat, June 3rd. This is Wednesday. So let's have a chat about having bad days and what companies are looking for in terms of hiring someone, whether it's a full time job or a remote job, a project based type of collaboration, just about anything. But first and foremost, let's go with bad days because right now I'm having a bit of a bad day. And it happens, I think everybody has bad days for all sorts of reasons, There's too much traffic or there's something wrong, whatever, with somebody in your family or a friend or something. It really doesn't matter what type of problems you have. I'm sure that everybody can relate to that, just having a bad day. And I think what's the most important thing I've learned over these 31 years that I've been alive is the fact that when you're feeling bad, you shouldn't make any decisions. I think that's the most important thing I'd like to get across. I know this is a design thing, this is a design chat and whatnot, but I really think that what's happening here in the chat room is really indicative of how we act sometimes. Some people really want answers fast. They don't formulate their questions correctly. They're not sure what they want, but they want it now. And when you don't get exactly what you want, sometimes things happen and you don't really get the response that you want, and then you get mad. Because I think, I've been looking at my reviews on Udemy, and most people that gave me 1 star reviews, they're basically very upset in the heat of the moment. But then when I message them, sometimes, about 30 to 50% of them, they just say, hey, Chris, I'm sorry. I just gave you a bad rating because I couldn't find something. I was upset about it, but now everything's good. The course is great. Let me update the review. So I think that's really something that applies just about everywhere. Don't make any decisions whatsoever when you're upset. Don't decide to uninstall Photoshop. Don't decide, to quit your job or whatever. Just don't make any major decisions. Don't even order takeout food. Don't do anything that you might regret later. So that's the first thing that I'd like to say. Having bad days is inevitable, and what I like to do is I like to just observe them. I like to watch them as it unfolds. So let's say I'm feeling down, right? Let's say whatever I've lost a design contest, and obviously I'm upset because maybe I worked on it really hard for the past 8 days, and I put in let's say 15-20 entries, and obviously I'm upset about it. I may want to feel like I want to quit freelancing. I may feel like, okay, this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not skilled enough, or maybe the contest holders are jerks. Maybe I don't like them. They often neglect me. They don't give me enough feedback and whatnot. So these things, these feelings, I think that they're very normal. And I clearly remember having them when I was constantly freelancing. And again, at one point, I was active in 27 contests at the time. 27 contests. And I think I actually won 3 of them when I was, I'm pretty sure I won at least 2, probably the third one as well. But yeah, when you have those bad days, just observe them. Okay, I'm feeling bad. That's it. If you live with someone, maybe your parents, maybe your girlfriend, or whatever, just tell them, hey, I'm having a pretty bad day. That's it. Don't yell about anything. Don't do anything else, right? So I think that's a very simple advice that you can immediately implement. It takes a lot of commitment and a lot of maturity to understand that, hey, it's fine to have bad days. Just don't make any major decisions. Now, moving on to more concrete stuff, more design related stuff, I'd like to talk about, what companies are looking for. Because I feel a lot of people are asking questions like, how many days do I need to put in to actually get a job or to actually make, $100 or 1,000 or 10,000? It doesn't really matter, I personally hired at least 30 designers, and I've interviewed at least 200. So I'm 100% certain I've interviewed at least 200 designers. And these designers were for my Android app design company. So it was a very broad description. If you have good design skills, just apply. It doesn't matter if you're into print, if you're into digital painting, if you're into character design, into graphic design, into web design. It doesn't matter. Apply. Let's have a chat and we'll see what's what. So this is how I constantly advertise my jobs, my positions in my company. And I've met all sorts of people, from very young people, 18 years old, no previous experience and whatnot, all the way to seniors, 55 years, tons of experience in the field and whatnot. Some people worked at agencies, some people freelanced and whatnot. So I've interviewed tons of people, and what surprised me the most was how little their portfolio actually mattered, and how little their previous experience mattered. Um, you know, Basically nothing actually mattered what was written in their CV. Their school didn't matter at all. Where they previously worked didn't matter at all. And then the portfolio, well, this is a bit controversial. I would think, I'd say this is a bit difficult, because the problem is the following. Let's say you have a pretty good portfolio, right? It does tell me a little bit about your experience. Obviously, having a portfolio is a must. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not needed. But the problem that I'm looking at as an employer is the fact that, okay, this entry looks great, but in how much time did it take for you to actually make it? That's the biggest problem with portfolios. The fact that you have some entries that some literally took, 2 weeks to complete. You see a design, you see whatever, any type of the design whatsoever, and you say, okay, this is pretty good. It's not exactly perfect. You have some mistakes here and there. It's not, impeccable, but still is pretty good, right? And then you find out that that person, spent whatever. Let's say he spent let's upload here one of my designs. Okay, imagine that this design that I just posted in general, this took me 8 hours to make. So that's the problem. The design itself, it's pretty okay. It's nothing amazing, nothing phenomenal. It's a strong 8, maybe 9 out of 10. It does show that I know how to play with the black and white adjustment layer. It does show I probably know how to use the pen tool or the rectangle tool. I know a little thing about typography. But again, the fact that I made this in 8 hours, that's terrible. Because that's the thing, as an employer, one of the biggest concerns is productivity. How much can I get out of you? So this is why I believe, having a portfolio, again, it's an absolute must. It's not everything. Because what I do when I hire designers, because I'm still hiring designers actually for my oatmeal business, is I constantly look at 2 things. So I look at their portfolio, and then I give them a practical test. And the practical test, is extremely simple. It's something that obviously shifted over time, and I adjusted it over time. But it's as basic as you can. It's purposely vague, and I clearly say that it's vague. And it goes something like this. Here you have a fresh installation of Photoshop. It's the latest edition at the time of this recording. You have 20 to 25 minutes to create a pencil. Create a pencil in Photoshop. It can be any size, any perspective, any color, any style. It can be however you want to be. You can use whatever tools you want to use. Absolutely anything that you want. Just make sure you have a good pencil to show me after 20 to 25 minutes. Ideally, use as many techniques as you can. I'm going to be watching through TeamViewer, so I'm going to be watching your screen. And as you work along, I may ask a few questions regarding why you did this, why you did that, and so on. So this is the test. This is my hiring test. After I see your portfolio, and obviously let me back up a bit. So out of those 200 people that I interviewed, I've seen at least 600 CVs. So don't think that I let everybody inside my office. I obviously trim that list, because some people, even if they have a portfolio, even if they're pretty okay, I may not invite them for an interview for various reasons. So okay, so let's say 600 candidates overall over the last 5 years. 200 people called in, about 30 hired. So I give them this test, create a pencil, and I watch them how they work. Some of them use the marquee tool, then they get the bucket tool, and they fill in that selection. Some use the brush tool, and they simply freehand. Other people use the pen tool in shape mode. Other people use the rectangle tool, and that's my ideal situation. That's what I'd like to see. Now, again, I think this test is really fantastic because it tells me so much. For example, some people create the entire pencil on one single layer. That tells me a whole lot. And what I like to do, I like to let them work for about 15 minutes. And then I say something, okay, how about you change the color to whatever? Change the color of the gum or whatever, a small part of it. And I can see how they struggle with it, how they try and do various things, but obviously it doesn't work. Or, can you make that part smaller? And they get the eraser tool and they start brushing away. That's again horrible, it's such a big tell, that you have no idea what you're doing, because obviously you can design that pencil whatever way you want, but you should work non-destructively. You should work by giving yourself as much flexibility as possible. So using shapes is a must. Obviously, you could potentially, use the brush tool and do it freehand, and then use a hue and adjustment layer, hue and saturation, with the colorize option checked. You have obviously many ways to actually do it. There's no right or wrong way, but I really think that obviously you should work, with shapes. Obviously, you should give yourself as many options as you can. So I think, that test is itself very, very telling. And basically, you have, again, the portfolio, you have the practical test, and then the basic interview, right? Just, tell me a few things about yourself and whatnot. So based on these things, I actually hire people. Now, what you should be doing as a beginner, I strongly feel that you should have a Behance portfolio first and foremost. You should not make your own site. You should not create your own portfolio, www.chrisbarron.com. You should not do that. And the reason behind it is very simple. It's because it's not a good use of your time. You're going to spend a ton of hours designing it. It's not going to be what you imagined it to be. And that's the honest truth, because even my sites, they're not perfect. They're not exactly what I wanted them to be. For various reasons I won't get into right now, it just doesn't work that way. So you should never invest in your own personal website, especially as a beginner. Behance is the best way to go about it, pure and simple. It's not really a conversation. You may have a few questions about this, but I'd rather move on because, again, 100% Behance is the best way to go about it. Not Dribbble, not your own website, just use Behance. So that's the first thing that I would do as a beginner. The next thing that I would do is definitely get the 40 practical projects course that I made. That's on Udemy and on my own platform. And that's just because you have so many projects. You have a ton of projects that you can use to obviously populate your portfolio. As a beginner, what I'm looking for is at least 6 entries. Ideally, I would like to see anywhere from 6 to about 15, 20 tops. If you have more than 20, I don't care. I'm not going to look at them. So my time as an employer is very limited. What I like to do is I like to look at various things like basic things like your age, whether you're from, your portfolio, your style and whatnot, and I basically quickly eliminate candidates. So I strongly believe, at least my friends here in Romania that obviously hire people from the same niche, from the design niche, they do the same thing. You don't really have the time to actually go through a CV from start to finish, read up the whole thing, go through pages and whatnot. This is why, again, Behance is such a critical thing. You know how Behance works. You know how it looks. I've seen countless websites, complicated websites done in Flash or whatever, full screen things that had no navigation. You had no idea how to actually go through it and whatnot. Confusing things that obviously take up a lot of my time. So I don't want to do that as an employer. I like to see a Behance profile, again, at least 6 entries, tops 15, 20, something like that. And your entries should be preferably from the same style. I would not make something like, one website, one logo, one whatever, digital painting, one whatever, retouching. You should not do something like that, because that just shows you that you're mediocre at a lot of things. What you should be doing is focusing on one specific niche, whatever, Facebook ads, YouTube thumbnails, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is you pick a field and you show diversity inside that field. So if you create, again, let's say you create YouTube thumbnails, just make sure you have some variety in them. So let me just quickly show you some YouTube thumbnails. Here you go. So again, these are various styles. You have an abstract one, you have an illustration-based one, you have something based on retouching. So what you have to do is you have to show diversity inside that particular niche. If you're gonna focus on web design, again, don't create, 10 entries, all lawyer websites, or all of them tech websites. This is what a lot of my students unfortunately do. They specialize in tech, for example. They make everything white, a white background. They make, they make use of illustrations from freepik.com, and that's it. And basically every design looks the same. So you should really avoid making the same thing over and over. Try and show some variety. So again, that's what I would do as a beginner. I would definitely create a Behance profile. I would populate it with something that's very much needed in today's economy. I would definitely not shy away from Instagram content, basically social media content. I would definitely not do logo design. I would not do digital painting. I wouldn't do things, just for the hell of it. Because I see some people here in Review My Work that do all sorts of projects that, they have no end goal. Listen, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to, bash anyone's, hobbies. Because again, look, for example, let me just post this real quick. That was actually posted recently by someone in Review My Work. So this art right here, this is probably digital painting. This person probably used a graphics tablet and all sorts of brushes. And this person designed this character from Peaky Blinders, which is a popular show, which I personally love. So with this particular design that I just posted in general, what can you actually do? You go and you want to get a job, whether it's, again, whatever it may be, it doesn't really matter what it is. This is so niched. Only, I would say, something like 5% of employers would actually appreciate this type of design. It doesn't tell me anything about your skills. This actually, for me personally, if I see projects like this one, this shows me that you're a dreamer. This shows me that you're focused on your hobbies, that you spend time on your hobbies. This shows me that you choose these types of projects versus the thumbnails that I just previously posted. This is a negative for me as an employer. I want people that make good use of their time. I want employees that want to learn more, that want to develop their skills. So we create, again, Android apps, right? Personalization apps. I need people that want to specialize in that particular field and that want to learn skills that are universally applied. Because again, if you think about what I did in these thumbnails, these show a good amount of knowledge in terms of the overall composition. I know how to position these elements. I know how to transmit a message. I know typography because you can tell how everything is lined up. I know a little bit about contrast. There's so much that these thumbnails show, right? And these points, again, contrast, overall composition, the balance of the composition, how I choose my colors and whatnot. So everything can be applied to something else, can be applied to, again, to a brochure, to an indoor ad, to a Facebook ad, to whatever. So companies are looking for things like this. On the other hand, this digital painting, this shows nothing. This doesn't tell me anything about you. Again, it only tells me negative things about you. Again, not trying to bash this person's work, because again, if you're using Photoshop as a hobby, you just want to blow off some steam, you just want to draw some things for the fun of it, or maybe you want to become a professional artist, you if that's a thing, maybe you want to sell paintings, maybe you want to sell your digital art on Etsy or whatever, because that's an option. Obviously, you could potentially live off that, and you could potentially, make a living out of it. It's not my cup of tea. It's not something that I suggest you do. So think about that when you look at your Behance profile. What type of things are you showing? Are you showing that you know how to choose the right fonts? Are you showing that you know how to use the proper colors? Bright, lovely, saturated colors. Are you showing that you have some variety in your typography skills? That you know not to crowd the design, for example. Because what most beginners do is they crowd the design. For example, identify layers fast, this particular thumbnail. Notice how clean it is, how simple it is. So again, this to an employer is gonna show, again, a lot of things that basically one photo says more than 1,000 words. So that's what I strongly believe, that you have to make sure that your portfolio speaks volumes about your mindset and where you are right now. So that's about it. So that's having a bad day, and that's about what a beginner should do to get started. Let's see if there's any other questions. If you have questions for me, please post them now. We still have 8 minutes to go. Let's see. The biggest problem, getting inspiration. Okay, that's one question. Let's see if there's anything else. Again, how many days? Well, again, I earned my first paycheck, let's put it like that, after 3 weeks. So I think it's reasonable to say that after the month of working probably 8 hours per day, you should be able to win at least $100, $200. I think that's doable, but obviously it really depends on, the platform you choose. It depends on so many factors. It may not be indicative of your skills at all. For example, I did try at a certain point to pivot my Android design company. We did try to post to offer our services on Freelancer. And even though we had incredible designers and we had a fantastic portfolio, we still couldn't manage to get jobs fast enough. It was so difficult to get jobs on Freelancer. You had to buy packs of bids. You had to do all sorts of things, and we couldn't manage. So if you don't manage to win, that doesn't mean that you don't have the right skills. You may have Photoshop skills, but you may not have, selecting the proper platform or selecting the proper contest skills. So I think, that's something completely different. But to answer your question again, I think 1 month. After the 1 month, you should have some success, at least one win. It can be a minor win. If you don't win anything after 6 months, I think you may want to look at something else. If you do it just about full time, let's say 3 out of 7 days out of the week, if you do that for 6 months and that's nothing, you haven't won at least $50, I think you should probably stop. Okay. One thing that's super obvious is the fact that when you do any type of course on Udemy or anywhere else, you're gonna follow along, you're gonna follow my footsteps, and you're gonna recreate my design. You really have to make sure that what you upload on Behance is different enough. Let me tell you a quick story. This is nice. So the story goes like this. I was hiring an Android developer, so an engineer, a coder basically, And obviously I was looking at her resume, at her portfolio. It was it was a girl, and she made a game, right? The job in question had a salary of about, I think, about $2,400 or something like that. So pretty big. The average salary here in Romania is about, I would say, about 800, $900, something like that. So the position was very well paid, right? At least $2,000. Let's call it $2,000 for the sake of it. And she worked at a multinational company, a pretty big one, but she didn't stay that long. And she came to me, obviously, after going through the proper channels and whatnot, the interviews and whatnot, applying for the position. And she showed me her portfolio, and she actually made a game. And that was relevant because making a game is actually, it's quite difficult in terms of, creating an app. And I asked her, hey, what about the design? Did you make the design? Because obviously it's a very important question, because a developer that knows how to design, it's a fantastic thing. It's like a unicorn. It's something that you don't see all that often. Most, have basic design skills, in terms of, obviously not putting whatever, let's say, dark blue on a black background. They have at least that type of skill, so very basic, minimal. But that particular game was beautiful. That particular game was gorgeous, actually. It was very bright, it was well lit, it was happy. The game overall looked fantastic from the screenshots, from her portfolio. So again, I asked her, did you create this design? And she said, yeah, I made it all myself. And that was actually a freebie. That was actually a UI kit that was posted on freebiesbug.com or something like that. I specifically knew that website because I think most of you guys know freepick.com or flaticon.com. Well, I have at least 15 sites that I regularly visit for freebies and whatnot, for various design resources. Especially when I was working, picking up projects, I knew all the websites out there. And subsequently, I knew most of the freebies out there. And she said, yeah. And then, I continued on for a bit, asking her one or two other questions. And then I asked again, are you sure that you made this design? She said, yeah, again. Where did you make it? What program did you use? Illustrator, Photoshop, Sketch, whatever. And she said, oh, Photoshop. Okay. And then I said, so then you must know your way around the program pretty well, right? She goes, yeah, I guess so. And it was, it was so embarrassing for me. It was okay. And then obviously I started smiling. I didn't get upset or whatever. I started really smiling, a big grin on my face. And as she was talking about whatever, her firm or her firm or company or something, about her boss or something, I opened up that UI kit because again, I knew the design, I knew the person who actually created it, by his username. I knew exactly where to find that UI kit, and I showed her that UI kit, and man, she got red like a tomato. I mean, her face was. I just flipped the screen because I have these Dell screens that rotate. I flipped it. I showed her the UI kit, and I asked something very brief, very very succinct. What's up with this UI kit? And it was exactly the design that she used. She obviously stole it. She actually used it. She used that freebie, but she claimed it was herself that she made it. And again, she was so embarrassed. She was so red. And I felt bad after she got so red. I felt bad that she put herself in that predicament. But I did ask her 3 times. I remember clearly that I asked her 3 times, did you create this design? What program did you use to create it? Are you sure you made it? So I gave her all the chances. Hey, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I didn't create it. I just used something I found off the internet. But she didn't. She didn't come clean, And when I finally flipped the screen around, man, again, she was, yeah. I wouldn't say she was about to start crying, but she did feel really embarrassed, and she was so red in her face. It was again a very interesting thing. So the point of that story is that you should never never ever put yourself in a position where you create something that's extremely similar. Because if you look at this second thumbnail, speed up Photoshop, if you just make, the background red instead of blue, it's still my design, right? It's still my design. If you change the percentage from 50% to 20%, it's still my design. But if you change most of them, then okay, that makes sense. If you change, a large part of it, then okay, that makes sense. But you have to make sure you don't put yourself in an embarrassing position. And if anyone questions you, you can say, hey, okay, my portfolio is based on various courses I followed. I didn't create them from my own imagination. I did create them from scratch, if that's the truth. I did create them from scratch, but it wasn't my imagination. It's much better to come clean about it rather than, boast about something, because again, you're going to get caught. That's the thing. You're going to get caught. Maybe not exactly like it happened in my case with my interview, but you will get caught after the day, after the week, after the month, and you don't want that. Because if you're gonna lose that trust, there's no going back from that. So that's about it, guys. Again, I hope you're having a better day than I am. Again, don't make any decisions when something feels off, when something feels wrong, when you're not properly motivated, when you're a bit sad, maybe you're depressed. Don't make any decisions. Just wait it out. Just sit back, wait it out. Don't do anything. Don't uninstall Photoshop. Don't drink some vodka. Don't order that takeout. Don't get into a screaming match. Just chill and let it pass. Sleep it off, and tomorrow is surely gonna be better. And then when you're cool and collected, then make a decision. Should I continue with this project? Should I continue on my journey, on my design journey and whatnot? But not when you're in the heat of it. And then regarding what you should do as a beginner, you should create a Behance profile. You should upload anywhere from 6 to 15 designs, no more than 20. You should focus on one specific niche, something like Facebook ads or YouTube thumbnails or business cards or whatever. And inside that particular niche, you should show some variety, diversity. You should use various colors, illustrations, real people, bright colors, dark colors and whatnot. Show some variety. Variety is key. So that's about it. This was the second design chat for June 6th, June the 3rd, Wednesday. And the next one is going to be on Sunday. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this was insightful, and have a great day. Thank you. Chris, I'm out.